This Fox News star has plenty to say.
Welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight.
Taking on the headlines every night on his show, now the TV host sounding off with us on the Roseanne Barr controversy.
I voted for Donald Trump, and that is not allowed in Hollywood.
She claims she was fired because she was a Trump supporter. Do you think that's true?
I don't know. I think it was stupid. She had the highest rated show on their network. I thought the tweet was kind of awful, but the impulse to fire people who are like silly on Twitter, like, I don't know. So let's slow down a little bit.
And when it comes to the president, Tucker tells it how he sees it.
Trump's ideas are pretty good. The execution is spotty.
Trump's 2020 opponents could be pretty A-list.
You tell me what you think.
Yeah.
How they would do. Oprah.
I mean, I think she'd have a pretty good shot.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, look, it depends on what they're running on. Clearly, Oprah is a remarkable communicator, probably without parallel right now. The question is, what is she seeking to communicate? Same with The Rock. What's his message? What is he selling?
Public figures and influential personalities frequently become involved in debates over social and political ideologies, often leading to heated discussions in the media. Oprah Winfrey, a highly regarded television host, media mogul, and philanthropist, has, at times, voiced perspectives on race, social justice, and equality. Recently, conservative commentator Tucker Carlson has critiqued Oprah's viewpoints, framing them as part of a woke agenda. Carlson's critique and Oprah's response, or lack thereof, have generated significant public discussion, reflecting broader cultural divides and how powerful voices shape public opinion on contentious issues.
If we don't show up tomorrow, it is entirely possible that we will not have the opportunity to ever cast a ballot again.
Actually, I'm disappointed. I think Oprah's become a major divider in our country, and I think, frankly, she should be ashamed of herself. And you know who else should be ashamed? Fox. Because I've seen Oprah on Fox about 50 times making the same statement, and I think it's a disgrace what Fox does, because everyone thinks Fox is so pro-Trump. They're not pro-Trump at all. They've put Oprah on all morning long. That's all I see is Oprah.
The term woke initially originated from African-American vernacular English of to mean awareness of social injustices, particularly concerning racial inequalities, over time. However, woke has evolved and taken on a range of meanings, often depending on who is using the term and their intentions.
Hi, I'm Norah O'Donnell, and this is Person to Person. Our guest today is Oprah.
Hello, everybody.
Oprah Winfrey is a powerhouse and media icon, hosting The Oprah Winfrey Show for 25 years and interviewing more than 37,000 people during the show's run. She is one of the most influential and famous people in the world. Oprah retired from her daily TV show in 2011, launching her media empire, which now includes the Oprah Winfrey Network, O Magazine, Oprah's Book Club, and lifestyle website, Oprah Daily. She's also an author. Oprah has written over a dozen books about self-care and healing. Now she's coming out with a new book with Harvard professor Arthur Brooks called Build the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier. So we visited Central Park.
Those are the things that make you the happiest.
They make me the happiest, bread and trees.
In a cafe in New York City for an intimate person-to-person conversation about the road to happiness.
So good to see you.
So good to see you.
I was a philosophy major, and Aristotle, of course, talks about the power of reflection. So to hear you reflect about everything you learned on the show, and as you write in the book, the Oprah Winfrey Show was a front row seat to unhappiness.
Yes, 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 yes. You know, I learned it was my greatest classroom. I've never had a therapist, but I had so many therapists on the show. I got my therapy from the Oprah Show, and I learned so much. So when I first started having conversations with families from, you know, different walks of life, that's when I came to understand that there is a common bond that we all share, that we're all really seeking the same things. And knowing that that thing was happiness came from the show. And every day I would sit and talk with the audience for a half hour, sometimes 40 minutes. The producer would be like, oh my God, when is she gonna let go of the audience? What I really want is to have a conversation with the audience to see, why did you come, and what did you get from the show, and did you benefit at all, and why do you watch, all of that. So 10 years in, the audience became my focus group. I would always ask people, what do you want? What would it take to make you happy? And most people, when I'd say, what do you want? They'd just say, I just want to be happy. Tell me what that looks like. And as the years progressed, women were more able to identify what that specifically was. But when I first started asking that question in the mid-90s.
For some, it represents a commitment to recognizing and addressing systemic injustices. For others, particularly critics, woke has become a pejorative label associated with excessive political correctness, social justice activism, or progressive agendas that are seen as out of touch with mainstream values.
People always just say, well, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. Well, what does that look like?
Define it.
Define
happiness.
Define it. And what I realize is that most people have never defined it. And then they'd say, well, I want my kids to be happy. Well, that's your kids, but what do you want? And so being able to answer specifically what that looks like for you is the beginning of being happier. You know, I used to always think that I would be happy going to Broadway, because I thought that's just the natural progression. You gotta do Broadway. Mm-hmm. When the show ended, I was like, gotta do Broadway, gotta do Broadway. And I remember the Tony Kushner sent me a play. I've never shared this story. And after a while, I started to realize I really don't know how I'm gonna do this play every night for 8 shows a week. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. And I don't even love the play as much as I love the idea that it was Tony Kushner and the idea of being on Broadway. So I then really started to examine for myself, what would that look like for me being in New York? Where would I walk my dogs? Where would I live? Where would I go to the grocery store? If I can't be surrounded by the park, how am I going to really exist? Just getting around the city was always overwhelming for me. Yeah. So I made a conscious choice for my happiness early in my career that New York would not be the place that I would seek. My dream was Chicago. And so the very idea of being in a place where I felt like I could take roots was what I was looking for to make myself feel secure, solid, confident.
So on that,
Tucker Carlson's labeling of Oprah's views as woke fits into this latter interpretation. Carlson has built his platform around critiquing what he views as the overreach of progressive ideas and their influence on American society. By framing Oprah's statements or initiatives as part of a woke agenda, Carlson signals to his audience that her views align with a version of progressivism he sees as problematic.
In terms of what you said, that defining happiness, because that's part of, I feel like, what this book does in the beginning is exactly what you just said. It said, happiness is not, I want to be happy. You got to, what is it?
Yeah,
about
what does
happiness?
it look like for you?
So how do you define happiness? Well, you call it happierness.
Yeah, I call it happierness because, as Arthur explains in the book, none of us can be happy all the time. But I will say that I have reached a level of enjoyment, contentment, satisfaction, and purpose that I'm pretty much happy all the time, even though I have negative feelings. And one of the things I think that he expresses so well in this book is being able to identify your negative feeling versus believing that that is a constant state of mind for you, or happiness or unhappiness. So the fact that I have a bad emotion or bad feelings, but can observe those feelings and then change them.
You wrote in the book that the heart of the Oprah Winfrey show was that it was the classroom.
Yeah. And I think the heart of me is really a teacher. One of the big lessons I learned from the show was this, that after every conversation, no matter who it was, in one form or another, that person would say, how was that? Was that okay? That happened the first time Beyonce taught me to twerk.
Yes.
At the end of it, she handed me the mic and she goes, was that okay? I went, you're Beyonce, it's very much okay. I learned to twerk. And then it happened when I was interviewing a father who had abused his children. At the end of it, he goes, was that all right? Obama's like, it's good, it's good. Yeah. And so what I started to see was that there was this thread that connected all of the conversations, and that what people were really saying, they were looking for a validation, like, was that all right? Did you hear me? And did what I say matter? And I could tell you after every interview, I'm sure it happens to you in one form or another, people are looking to say, was that okay?
Why do you think we're in a happiness slump in America?
Ooh, I will tell you, one of the most profound reasons, I think, is because everybody is looking at other people's social media, what they believe to be other people's lives, which is only a snapshot of other people's lives, and feeling envy about that. And one of the things that Arthur and I talk about in this book is that envy is the great destroyer.
The happiness killer.
It is the happiness.
Oprah Winfrey has long used her platform to discuss social issues, from her days as a talk show host to her current status as a cultural icon. Oprah has shaped conversations about mental health, race, and social justice. She has a significant following, and her influence is particularly strong among those who appreciate her open, empathetic approach.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
But
my staff will deal with that later.
Yeah.
Oprah's support for initiatives like the #MeToo movement and her past interviews that tackle topics like privilege and race have only reinforced her reputation as someone unafraid to address sensitive subjects.
Your capital with the public is enormous. Trusted, respected. Are you risking anything at all entering the political arena to endorse Kamala Harris? And I think the answer people understand in this time and place is yes. So why was it so important to risk that reputation, all of that trust, all of that capital for this moment?
Because I really care about this country. And there couldn't have been a life like mine, a career like mine, a success like mine, without a country like America. Only in America could there be a me. And I feel that a lot of things are on the line, a lot of things are at stake. And if ever you're going to stand up and fight for your country and fight for freedoms that, you know, I don't need the right to abortion, but I believe that the right to control your body and be able to control what happens to you, particularly as a woman person in this country, is essential. It's fundamental. And all of the freedoms that I have enjoyed, the successes that I have enjoyed, I feel that they're on the line and at stake in this moment. And I think there's the bottom line for me is that decency and respect are on the ballot, and that's why I was willing to do it. And let me just tell you, the big risk was when I don't have anything to lose now. I don't have a show. I don't have. It's not. What is it going to cost me other than knowing that I had to do whatever I could to speak up?
Finally, last question, because I know you have to go. I will never forget seeing you at the Golden Globes, telling the story of being a little girl and seeing Sidney Poitier win an award and what it meant to you.
Yeah.
You couldn't describe it then. You just said the feeling was amen.
Yes.
What will it be? What will it mean to you to see Kamala Harris take the oath of office as the first female president of the United States?
You know, everybody uses the phrase all the time that, you know, it means anything is possible. It will mean that the glass ceiling has been shattered, that the ceiling on any potential for anybody has been disrupted. There will be weeping in the streets, and I will be among those weeping in the streets, okay? Women all over the world will be weeping in the streets. It will mean that actually anything is possible, because this is her mother, her father. immigrants coming to the United States of America, only in America could Kamala Harris's story be possible. And I'm here because only in America could my story be possible.
Oprah, thank you very much.
Winfrey has also been known for her charitable work, including founding the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa, which focuses on providing educational opportunities for underprivileged girls. Her efforts in philanthropy reflect her values and are generally praised by her supporters. However, her perspectives on issues related to privilege, race, and social justice can be polarizing, especially among those who feel such views are indicative of a broader woke agenda.
Please welcome Kamala Harris!
Oprah threw her star power behind Kamala Harris last night in a live-streamed interview in the battleground state of Michigan. There was a 400-strong studio audience and a spectacular video wall of 1,000 screens of viewers across America.
I see some faces I recognize.
In that amazing wall, more Hollywood star power. Chris Rock, Jennifer Lopez, Julia Roberts, Meryl Streep, and other A-listers. And they heard Harris make a startling admission.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
And there's potential trouble for Trump in the battleground state of North Carolina.
Shocking details about a Republican candidate for governor rocking the already wild presidential race.
He called for the return of slavery, oh yeah, and dished about how much transgender porn turns him on.
The Republican candidate for governor, Mark Robinson, is refusing to step down in the wake of a shocking CNN report that he posted lewd comments on a pornographic forum 12-plus years ago.
Those are not the words of Mark Robinson. You know my words, you know my character.
Robinson spoke at the Republican convention, and he was endorsed by Trump.
I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King ×2.
There are fears Robinson may drag down the Republican vote in that state. Asked if he still backed Robinson, a Trump representative said, President Trump's campaign is focused on winning the White House and saving this country. North Carolina is a vital part of that plan. So no mention of Robinson.
Tucker Carlson, a prominent conservative voice in American media, has frequently criticized progressive ideologies, often framing them as threats to traditional values. When Carlson discusses a woke agenda, he's often referring to ideas and actions he perceives as too progressive or overly focused on identity politics.
Now today, Kamala Harris sat down with good friend and arguably America's most famous television host, Oprah Winfrey. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it was as sickening as you'd imagine.
The real measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. And it's important for us
Absolutely.
to articulate that.
You know, majority of young Americans, 18 to 34, say that the cost of living is their top issue ahead of the election. Let's take a look.
Groceries are extremely expensive right now.
I don't understand how people are affording life right now.
By a long shot, her tax plan is phenomenal, no glaze.
Kamala Harris just delivered her new economic plan, and boy, oh boy, is it good for small business owners.
You guys, Kamala Harris is going to announce tomorrow a $25,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers.
Now, we didn't just get this off the internet afterwards. This was part of the Oprah special. Now, she did her usual thing as well, of course, pointing out the complete obvious.
When I look around at these screens, Oprah, I look at who's in the room, and this is America.
This is
America.
Yes, it is America. Now, Oprah made the unintentionally very powerful, I thought, point that something about Kamala changed drastically when Joe Biden withdrew. This was Kamala's response to that.
You know, we each have those moments in our lives where it's time to step up.
Time to step up.
Time to step up, you know?
Yeah, see, I reckon I reckon the time to step up might just have potentially been 3.5 years ago when she became the vice president. I mean, better late than never, absolutely. And at least some in the audience were willing to ask proper questions.
What would be your specific steps to strengthening the border?
So it's a wonderful and important question. You know, my background was as a prosecutor.
Yes, Kamala, we know. She went on to blame Trump. That was her answer. Now, when she was asked about what she would specifically, and that's key because people keep saying specifically because she doesn't give specifics, what she would specifically do to bring down the cost of groceries, she again spoke about being brought up by a hard-working mother. You could not make this stuff up. Now, I promise I won't force you to sit through much more, but stay with me.
When the middle class is strong, America is strong.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
No, I agree completely. So why isn't it already after nearly 4 years in power, Kamala? Now, young sexual assault victim Hadley Duval was there. Now, she is a young woman who was raped by her stepfather as a child.
This includes efforts that emphasize social justice, race, and equality in ways that, in his view, may marginalize other perspectives or push a single ideological narrative.
Horrific.
At age 12, I took my first pregnancy test, and it was positive.
Hadley is here. Stand up, Hadley.
Now, she is incredibly brave and strong, absolutely. And as you could just see, Hollywood superstars shed tears, Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts. It was highly emotional. And of course, it was used to highlight the eradication of Roe v. Wade and abortion rights being handed to each state. But I don't know the answer to this, but did they invite any other young victims of crime, of rape, families of people murdered, or those families who have been hurt or lost loved ones because of, I don't know, out-of-control crime, illegal immigration, global conflicts that may have started due to American weakness, so many lives lost, tragedies that can be directly linked to her administration? No, of course not. Make no mistake about it, this was a commercial. It was an ad disguised as an interview.
This is going to be won by a field margin. It's on us to roll up our sleeves and do the work. Let's make phone calls and knock on doors. Go to go.kamalaharris.com to join this people-powered movement.
I am a mother of 2 kids. This is their first chance to vote in an election, and I couldn't be more excited for them.
And I love Julia Roberts as an actress. I think she is divine. But even some of the best actors in the world could not disguise the reality. Have a look at this.
I want people.
Carlson's critique of Oprah could likely involve a response to comments she's made on issues such as race, systemic inequality, or the privileges that come with certain racial and socioeconomic backgrounds. By positioning Oprah as part of the woke movement, Carlson suggests that she represents an elite, liberal perspective that doesn't resonate with, or perhaps even alienates, a segment of the American public.
Can women save the world? And the answer is, we women people, we are used to saving other folk. We've been doing it a very long time, and we need to first and foremost honor the sacred time of saving ourselves, because that is where our greatest power lies. That's what Dorothy was trying to figure out running up and down that yellow brick road all that time. And when we fulfill the task of actually making ourselves whole, we're set up to fully express what we know, to now negotiate, differentiate, to placate, to facilitate, to demonstrate, and delegate. And on a really good day, it helps us carve out 20 minutes to actually meditate. And on a really, really good day, like the one we had last January, some of those very skills helped get 42 new women sworn into Congress. And I'm here to say, if I were a gambler, I sure would bet that those 42 new congresswomen have experience with issues that few congressmen have ever had to face. Let's see, let's start with, there's the profound and abiding lack of equitable pay. Ditto, the lack of affordable childcare. There's the distinct possibility of being sexually assaulted in college or raped on a date. There are the bosses who believe that the female anatomy is theirs for the grabbing. There's the shocking abuse of women serving in our military, and we could go on and be here all night. But if this sort of nonchalant brutality has wounded our spirit in any way, I'm here tonight to say that it has also galvanized our determination to live with greater depth, with greater tenacity and backbone. This diverse new generation of congresswomen has been forged by fire, and this is what I know for sure: we are all the better and the sharper for it. Stacey Abrams is quite simply a force of nature. Michelle Obama's extraordinary book, Becoming, is on track to be the best-selling memoir of all time. Marie Kondo is sparking new ways to think about home. Greta Gerwig's version of Little Women hits theaters this Christmas. And as of last week, Lori Lightfoot is the first African-American openly gay mayor of Chicago. Will you look at us, women in the world? So we protest and we persevere and we get knocked down. But to paraphrase a memorable moment on the floor of the Senate, still we persist.
In calling out her alleged agenda, Carlson may be responding to the fact that Oprah's ideas challenge some long-standing social norms and are often presented in ways that encourage self-reflection on topics such as privilege, responsibility, and empathy. For Carlson and his audience, these ideas may be seen as divisive or detached from what they view as a balanced, inclusive approach to social issues.
What's all this talk about women's rights? Little man in the back there say women ought not to have as much rights as men because women needs to be helped into carriages and over mud puddles. Well, I tell you, ain't nobody helped me into no carriages, and I ain't been helped over nary a mud puddle, and ain't I a woman? I done planted and plowed, gathered into barns, and worked as much and ate as much as any man when I could get it, and no man could head me, and ain't I a woman? I done born 13 children and seen them all sold off into slavery, and when I cried out with a woman's grief, ain't nobody but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? What I know is if one woman, Eve, was able to turn this world upside down all by herself, look like to me all these women's in this room together ought to be able to turn it right side up. Sojourner Truth delivered that speech at the 1851 Women's Rights Conference in Akron, Ohio. And little did she know that 168 years later, her words will still ring as clear as crystal, and I'd be delivering them to you, women in the world, at this magnificent gathering tonight. Ain't I a woman?
The exchange between Carlson and Oprah highlights the ongoing cultural and political divide in the United States. This divide has been amplified by the polarization of media, where networks and personalities often cater to specific ideological bases.
It was 1980. I was getting paid $22,000, and the guy who I was co-anchoring with was getting paid $50,000. So I went into my boss, and I said, he's getting paid a lot more money than I'm getting paid. And you know what my boss said? Why should you make that much money? In 1980, he said, why should you make that much money? He said, he has kids. Do you have kids? And I said, no.
I cook for 5 and you cook.
Do you have a house? And I said, no. And he said, so tell me why you need the same amount of money. And I said, well, because we're doing the same job. He says, I don't think so. And so I thought, I'll show you. We became a syndicated show in 1986. So I went into the bosses And I said, my team, they need to make more money. And the boss at the time said, why? They're all girls. That moment in the office, that was a deciding factor for me. I came back and said, look, I want to own my own show, and I want to take the risk of owning my own show so that I will be the one to say who gets what paycheck.
Right-leaning audiences gravitate towards commentators like Carlson, who address their concerns about the perceived overreach of progressive ideologies, while left-leaning audiences are more likely to align with Oprah's messages on social equity and awareness.
Well, lawmakers in California haven't gotten around to fixing the state's infrastructure, its housing crisis, its homelessness, its vanishing middle class. But they are at the forefront of another fight, rewriting grammar. Last week, the chair of the state Senate Judiciary Committee announced that only gender-neutral pronouns would be permitted on her, or rather, their committee.
So that we are using what my grammar teacher would have had a heart attack over. We are using the phrase they. My grammar teacher's long gone, and I won't be hearing from her. And if any of you... From them, exactly. From they.
Jason Nichols is a professor of African American Studies at the University of Maryland and a frequent guest on this show. They join us now. I assume you is still allowed, so it's good to see you. But I'm really struck, this is a function of human nature, but the left is especially susceptible to it, that any dumb trend that comes along is accepted immediately and mindlessly by people who should know better.
Like MAGA hats?
But no, MAGA hats have a very specific, you may disagree with them, but like they're calling for the election of a specific person. But like all the dumb people decided one day like pronouns are bad, and then we just sort of go along with it. Why?
Again, Tucker, I don't think that what they're saying is pronouns are bad. They're saying that you should be referred to the way that you choose to be referred to. So someone who is a man who identifies as a man, yes, we can call that person he. Someone who identifies as a woman, that person can be she. But a person who is gender non-binary, they can be they or shim or sheer or whatever pronoun they choose.
So in general, I kind of agree. I call people whatever they want to be called. You get married, you change your name, I'll call you by that name.
Exactly.
Whatever. I think that's your right. And out of respect, I go along with it. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that you're not allowed to use gendered pronouns. That's very different.
Yeah, and I actually find that problematic. I believe that people should have the opportunity to choose what they want to be called. I mean, that's the way, you know.
But there's a problem here. This is California, so you've got more than 10 million people in California speak Spanish at home.
Right.
Spanish is a gendered language.
Absolutely.
That means it is structurally transphobic. Will they allow Spanish to be spoken, again, a gendered language, in the committee room?
Well, there are people, at least in the United States, who are, there's Latino, Latina, and Latinx, so they're trying to make it a little more gender neutral.
But that's in English. I mean, that's how English speakers describe it. But there's no effort to impose these ludicrous rules on Spanish. And by the way, why not call California Californix? I mean, if we're really kind of remaining consistent here.
Yeah, well, I think California is the name of a place in California.
For critics like Carlson, Oprah's views on issues like systemic racism or privilege are emblematic of what they consider a woke perspective. For instance, Oprah has spoken about white privilege and the need for society to recognize historical injustices. To those who view wokeness as divisive, such discussions are seen as a way of assigning blame rather than promoting unity.
You can't choose how it wants to identify.
But they're not letting us choose. In other words, does it strike you, again, I think we agree that if you say, I'd really like you to call me this, out of politeness and decency, which I sincerely believe in, I will, okay?
Right.
But they're forcing people to say something stupid. Shouldn't that be the point where the rest of us say, I'm not playing along?
Well, see, the problem is that you're calling that stupid. I don't think it's stupid to say, I mean, there were people many years ago who said his name was Cassius Clay. We're not going to call him Muhammad Ali. That's stupid. And to me, it's like, no, whatever you want to be called, whatever you choose.
I'm for calling Cassius Clay Muhammad Ali because he wants to be called that.
He's not.
No
Cassius
problem.
Clay.
I
He's
agree.
Muhammad Ali.
No problem. This is a command that requires people to refer to others who have not asked to be called this by a plural pronoun when it's a singular person.
Right.
It's grammatically incorrect, it's awkward, it's dumb, it doesn't serve the interests of anybody, and it applies to all of us, but everyone's too afraid to call it what it is, which is insane.
First of all, language is living and breathing. It changes, it shifts. If you listen to how people talked in the 1920s, they don't talk they don't speak English the same way they speak English today. So, I mean...
But isn't that an organic process? That's not because some terrified little bureaucrat decrees that you must say this on pain of punishment.
Hey, we're in agreement about decreeing that you have to speak one way or use a particular pronoun for everyone. I don't like mandating speech.
Right, exactly. So we're in agreement. So then let's just very quickly assess, like, the response. Why we both agree with this. Why don't both of us, next time we hear this, say, you know what? No, I'm not playing along with your fantasy. Like, leave me alone, please.
Well, no, I mean,
Are we afraid to do that? I think we're afraid to do that.
No, I'm not afraid. If I were there, I would say, well, I prefer he. But, you know, I will call someone who wants to be called they, shim, sheer, whatever pronoun you choose.
Sheer?
Yeah, that's another one.
Okay.
But not quite as popular. But if you want to... if you want to be called something.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I agree. You know? I just don't think that we ought to be coercive, but they always get coercive, don't they?
Yeah, and I think that is problematic.
Yeah, okay. The fire of freedom burns brightly in your heart, and I appreciate that. Professor, great to see you.
Thanks, Tucker. Always fun.
This perspective tends to focus on a belief that issues around privilege and race should not be foregrounded, especially in ways that seem accusatory. For individuals who feel marginalized by these narratives, often conservative-leaning people, woke discussions can seem dismissive or hostile to their own experiences.
Not so long ago, it was a feature of high school biology class that biological sex is biologically real. It's detectable at the DNA level. You are born with it. You don't get to choose it. Just as you don't get to choose your height or your eye color, your susceptibility to breast cancer, or a million other things. It's genetic. Genetics are real. Maybe unfortunately, but doesn't change the truth of it. But now, that's hate speech. In his new special, Dave Chappelle, the comedian, explains what happens when you challenge this lunatic New Orleans. Well, that's the truest thing ever said, making up words to win arguments. You see that in a lot of places now. So none of that's particularly radical. It's pretty conventional, really. 4 years ago, no one would have noticed it. But now, a number of Netflix employees have decided to protest the special. They want it pulled off of the service. Then they harassed a man who came to support Chappelle and freedom of speech. Watch this.
Accountability! When do we want it? Now! When do we want accountability? When do we want it? Now!
It's okay to laugh, but you're sparking hate conversation.
Why is he breaking my sign? Breaking my sign! He's got a weapon! He's got a weapon!
So they break his sign, and then they accuse him, he's left holding only a stick, accuse him of having a weapon. So his speech is violence, their violence is speech. See how that works? What's interesting is that the number of people who really care about this issue enough to assault someone over it is tiny. And yet they have disproportionate power. 350 million people in the country, maybe 1,100 feel that way, but they're running everything. Why is that? Well, Seth Dillon might know the answer. He's CEO of the Babylon Bee, one of the very few remaining satire sites on the entire internet. He joins us tonight. Seth, thanks so much for coming on. So this stuff's in your face every single day. You're the target of a lot of this. You got to wonder, the people trying to destroy your business and your life, like, they're a tiny percentage of Americans, aren't they?
They are, but they wield all the power. This is the funny thing, you know, they really are the joke at this point, because they try to project themselves as being marginalized.
Oprah's popularity means that when she speaks about such issues, her voice carries significant influence, which can make people with differing views feel alienated or defensive. This clash of perspectives often leads to the idea that individuals like Oprah have an agenda to promote divisive views, even if the intent behind her message is to encourage empathy and understanding.
These are the marginalized, these are the oppressed,
Yes, exactly.
But you can't make fun of them. You know, the way that you can tell who holds all the power in a society is by who you can't make fun of, right?
That's right.
These are the people that you can't make fun of. So it's very clear they hold all the institutional power in our culture. And it's really interesting, you know, when you've got comedians like Chappelle, you got to worry about now when you're telling jokes, you don't just ask yourself, is this funny? You have to ask yourself, is this joke going to offend somebody who's more powerful than me but identifies as being marginalized because I might lose my career?
So is that, I mean, your site manages to be consistently funny, and I think probably most of our viewers get, you know, Babylon Bee headlines texted to them at least once a day. How big a concern is that for you? I mean, do you feel like you're right on the edge of getting your business taken away from you?
Well, I mean, that's the goal, right? There's like 10 different ways they're trying to attack comedy. One of them, it's not even intentional. They're making reality absurd. That whole opening you did with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and all these videos and how fake they are, like, it's impossible to satirize that. These people are beyond parody. Totally They've turned reality into a parody of itself. So that's one way. Then there's the intentional way. They fact-check jokes. They try to rate them false. They can get them taken down for misinformation. Then they try to accuse you of hate speech under the guise of satire or comedy, like what they're doing with Chappelle and saying that his jokes are beyond the pale. They hurt people. But really, it's the joke police. It's the people who are saying, oh, his jokes hurt my feelings. You know, those are the people, they deserve to be mocked more, not less, because it's just silly to act like joke police, like jokes really are like violence. Really, like you said earlier, you know, the speech is now violence and the violence is speech. You know, jokes are not violent. They don't hurt anybody. If we're all equal, we should all be able to joke about each other indiscriminately and not have this like hierarchical structure where we have certain people who are off limits and we can't joke about them.
If we're all equal, boy, you got right to the heart of it there. If we're all equal, only in a country where we're all considered equals can that happen. But we're not that country anymore. You're exactly right. Seth Dillon, I appreciate your coming on and your site, which I love.
The exchange between Oprah and Carlson, whether direct or through media narratives, exemplifies how public discourse in the United States has become increasingly polarized. As prominent voices in their respective fields, both Oprah and Carlson influence how people understand social issues, often through the lens of their own beliefs and experiences.
There's been a big push nationally, Biden administration is squarely behind it, to allow biological males to compete in girls' sports. We've covered it extensively on this show. It's very unpopular with the public. It's particularly unpopular in the state of South Dakota. South Dakota is one of the most Republican states in the country. Republicans essentially control the entire state. So Republicans in the legislature there recently passed a bill to prevent this from happening, to prevent biological men from playing on women's sports teams. And the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, who you doubtless have seen, said she was, quote, excited to sign it. Now she has changed her mind. Governor Noem joins us tonight to explain why she has. Governor, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. So here you have this bill, which I think all polling shows is popular in your state. I think it would be popular nationally. You said you were excited to sign it. Big business intercedes NCAA, Chamber of Commerce, and Amazon and tell you not to sign it, and you change your mind. I think a lot of our viewers are wondering your thinking on this and how exactly this happened.
Well, that's not true, Tucker, and thank you for inviting me to be on the show tonight. Of course. I could sign the bill the way that it is today, and then also, but it wouldn't solve the problem, and that's the real issue. As I looked at the bill and examined it and have been discussing with legal scholars for many months on how to protect women's sports, this bill would only allow the NCAA to bully South Dakota, and it would actually prevent women from being able to participate in collegiate sports. So what I've done is I've asked the legislature through a style and reform.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just for our viewers, I'm so sorry.
The bill.
Wait, can you just back up for 1 sec? For our viewers who haven't followed this as closely, how would this bill prevent women from playing in South Dakota, if you would?
Because what it would do is it would put a law on the books that would allow the NCAA to take punitive action against our state. And we're a small state, Tucker. We've had to fight hard to get any tournaments to come to South Dakota. When they took punitive action against us, we would have to litigate. And legal scholars that I have been consulting with for many, many months say that I would very likely lose those litigation efforts. And I don't think that
so
families
you're saying,
in
so
South
hold on,
Dakota,
just to be clear, it's not the bill. You're saying
have to sue many times over and over again.
But wait. So you're saying the NCAA threatened you, and you don't think you can win that fight. They said if you sign this, we won't allow girls in South Dakota to play, and you don't think you can win in court, even though the public overwhelmingly supports you nationally, and so you're caving to the NCAA. I think that's what you're saying.
No, that's not right at all, Tucker. In fact, you're wrong completely.
Okay.
I've been working on this issue for years. In fact, several years ago, I fought USDA to make sure that 4-H rodeo and that the sport of rodeo could keep girls' events.
If more public figures continue to weigh in on these divisive issues without fostering a constructive dialogue, there's a risk that the public will further entrench itself along ideological lines. The more one side frames the other as an enemy of traditional or progressive values, the less room there is for meaningful conversation.
Events and boys' events. So I've been working on this for many, many years. And back since November, I've been consulting with legal scholars and professors across the country, asking them, how do I protect women's sports? And they've gone through the steps to how I would legally challenge the NCAA and keep them from bullying the state of South Dakota. And what they've told me to do is that I need to build a coalition. So that's why today I launched DefendTitle9Now.com. And that's going to allow us to build a coalition of states that can fight the NCAA. Listen, I'm sick and tired of the NCAA threatening states, challenging us, and bullying us. And so we're going to build a coalition of leaders, athletes, and people who want to protect women's sports and want to make sure that our women keep Title IX in place to protect their right to be competitive and to be rewarded by participating in these team sports, and make sure this coalition can fight the NCAA to make sure we're protecting Title IX.
But these standards far predate Title IX, and I'm not exactly sure why Title IX is relevant or even really worth defending. I mean, this is thousands of years of common sense and tradition. Girls play girls' sports, boys play boys' sports. Why not instead just say, bring it on, NCAA? I'm a national figure. Go ahead and try and exclude us. I will fight you in the court of public opinion and defend principle. Why not just do that?
Tucker, you're preaching my sermon. That's what I did today. Today, I, with Herschel Walker,
you vetoed
Jack
the
Brewer,
bill.
With Nancy Lopez, we all stood together. I did not veto the bill. I did a style-informed revision and asked the legislature to change it so that I can win. Listen, I'm not interested in a participation trophy. I'm not interested in picking a fight that we can't win. I am a problem solver. I come to the table and I don't want to have talking points. And I've been bullied for the last year by liberals, Tucker. I'm not going to let anybody from the NCAA, from any big business, I'm not going to even let conservatives on the right bully me. I'm going to solve the problem. I'm going to make sure that we're building strength in numbers and we're going after the NCAA and make sure that we're keeping only girls playing in girls' sports. I've been doing this for years, and I'm going to solve the problem, not just pick a fight to pick a fight.
Well, but the legislature, you're saying, was just picking a fight to pick a fight. I thought that they were trying to codify what the majority of your citizens want, which is girls' sports for girls and boys' sports for boys. Here the NCAA comes in and says, if you do that...
This polarization doesn't just affect public perception of celebrities or media personalities. It trickles down into daily interactions and shapes how individuals view social issues. When these kinds of public disputes become emblematic of broader cultural battles, it makes it harder for people to empathize with those who hold different views, which can deepen. In light of this, there are ways that public figures, including Oprah and Carlson, could use their platforms to promote more constructive discourse. While it's natural for media personalities to have differing viewpoints, encouraging a balanced exploration of topics can foster more nuanced discussions. Oprah, known for her interviewing skills and ability to listen empathetically, could use her platform to host conversations with individuals who represent a range of perspectives, potentially bridging the gap on contentious issues. Likewise, figures like Tucker Carlson, who have a large audience receptive to conservative viewpoints, could engage with viewpoints that challenge their own in ways that promote understanding rather than conflict. While this might be a tall order given the nature of modern media, public figures have the potential to guide their audiences toward greater empathy and mutual understanding. The debate between Tucker Carlson's critique of Oprah's woke agenda underscores the complexities of public discourse in a polarized society. While Oprah's focus on issues of privilege, race, and empathy resonates with some, it can feel exclusionary or divisive to others. Conversely, Carlson's critiques appeal to those who feel alienated by progressive ideologies, yet they, too, may alienate individuals who support social justice initiatives.